Hey, welcome back to the Motorcyclist Podcast. This is where we talk about motorcycles and what makes them great. As always, topics on this show are constantly changing, but the one thing that remains the same is two-wheeled fun. In this episode, we are talking about motorcycle gear. All the gear, all the time. More specifically, we're going to talk about helmets, jackets, gloves, leather suits, boots, get into some airbag stuff, get into armor. And we're going to basically talk to you about why these things are important and some of the methods on how they're evaluated and rated. So before we get into it, we got to make some introductions as we always do. We got Adam Waheed, editor. We've got photographer Jeff Allen, who seems to be possibly a permanent addition to this podcast, and myself, executive editor Justin Dawes. So as always, we start with what we're riding this week. So Adam, let's start with you. What have you been riding this week?
Riding that Zero Motorcycles DSRX again. So the Zero Motorcycles adventure touring bike, all electric powered. We talked about that electric bikes a few episodes ago, and just it's an awesome bike. I love it so much. It's quiet, it's fun, it's got commanding presence, and it doesn't burn any gasoline.
There you go, Brad. Yeah, that was the last episode we talked about electric bikes, and it's kind of going like gangbusters. Lots of comments in there. People are defending and poo-pooing them just as we thought they would. So lots of good discussion and engagement, I guess. So
no surprises on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, one guy called us boomers.
Yeah.
Saying, we're boomers and complaining about something we haven't ridden. And I will say that all of us have ridden lots of electric motorcycles, and I don't think we were down on them in any case. So I think we were pretty fair about what they are and what they're awesome at.
Yeah, I thought so too. I saw some comments and people were thinking that we were haters or something, and I don't really understand.
Whatever.
I read those comments as well. I think maybe they were referring to other commenters.
Possibly.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because we were pretty clear that we're open-minded.
Yeah, very much. I like them. I think they're rad.
Yeah.
So anyway, super cool. Adam's still riding electric. That goes to show that we do like them and they are viable modes of transportation. So
absolutely.
Jeff, what about you?
Again, I'm back on the Honda CRF 250R. I've been riding motocross a few times since our last meeting. So
nice.
I've been going out to Paula or Fox Raceway, and then also Paris Raceway out near your old stomping ground.
Oh yeah, on my old hood. So you also got a little bit of putt around on a Montesa trials bike I saw when you were out shooting with me.
Yeah, I did briefly. I didn't get to challenge myself, but just because partially that's just so embarrassing. The trials bike, I'm really not good on a trials bike.
Though that thing is so awesome looking, especially that Montesa with the Repsol like factory
Tony Bow
graphics and Tony Bow setup. It like makes me want one, even though I am also very terrible at riding them. So myself, let's see. On Monday, I went with Jeff and finished up a test on the Himalayan, and we pushed it as far as we could ride it, and ended up
literally.
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna say we pushed it.
We tried to see how far we could go to the extreme with the bike in stock configuration, and it was really fun. We got into some decent stuff. It was really good in the sand wash. I was really surprised. And then I tried climbing a decent kind of technical, rocky, bouldery hill. And Jeff was like, there's no way you're making it at all. And
that was based on your tires. I was the bike wasn't properly set up.
Yeah, of course. But it was fun. Yeah. So we scratched it up a little bit and beat it up, but we gave it a proper test. Super, super fun motorcycle, and I'm really impressed with that bike every time I ride it. And perhaps we're going to do some more stuff with that bike, so stay tuned. As always, we want to hear your thoughts. Like, tell us about your motorcycle gear. Like, what's your favorite piece? What do you think is important? What do you don't think is important? And, put it down in the comment. Let us know. Let us know what you think. Let's start off with helmets. I think there's a way to go through this logically. We won't get too far in the weeds, but we do need to talk about types of helmets, then helmet construction, and then certifications. I guess we should start with, why is a helmet important? Because sometimes I think people miss that point.
Yeah, they're like 20 something states think that they're not important. There's no helmet law in 27 U.S. states or something like that.
That's pretty wild. I mean, hey, American freedom to do what you want, freedom to become brain dead, I guess. You know,
shouldn't laugh at that, I guess.
Shouldn't laugh, but I mean, I don't understand not riding with a helmet for many, many reasons. One being we've all crashed a lot and we know what head trauma looks like and feels like. Anything from a light concussion to serious TBIs, you know, traumatic brain injuries. And I want the maximum level of protection I can get, not to mention just protection from the elements, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the noise and the wind whipping across your face.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, just the comfort factor alone. I mean, that's all you need to know is comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I could drive in my car and stick my head out the window, but I don't.
Yeah. I mean,
Nice
you don't remove the windshield from all your vehicles? Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you're riding a side by side, and I want a helmet even in a UTV or side by side because usually they don't have windshields, and it's like, oh my god, like,
yeah,
I'm getting blasted here. So, and I would think if you took a bumblebee to the forehead any time in your life, you would immediately go buy a helmet. So
yeah, it's crazy too because like you wear if you wear like a showy open face helmet with the visor, a J Cruise helmet. It's like you're not even wearing a helmet. You just have the visor open and the wind's in your face and you're totally living that no helmet lifestyle. And then you put the visor down and it's all quiet and comfortable just like that. I don't know why you wouldn't just wear that helmet. It's a great compromise.
Yeah. So I guess if you're watching this and you don't wear a helmet, put in the comments why you don't. And like, we totally understand the freedom of choice and the freedom to choose. That's America. But I want more than just because I have the choice not to. Like, I really want to know why you don't wear a helmet. So let's talk about like types of helmets. You know, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We've got, you know, full face helmets, which, you know, cover your whole face, have a visor that comes down, modular, which are becoming more and more popular because they are awesome for travel. You know, so modulars, the front of a full face flips up and turns into an open face. It's great for, you know, not only like touring riding where maybe you're going slow at a time and you want more air and you want to experience the wind in your face, but also like going into a store, you could just flip your helmet up. You know, you want to eat a sandwich, you flip your helmet up. Like they're really cool setups, right?
Yeah, there was a time I wore nothing but modular, like on photo shoots and stuff, you know, because like you mentioned, I often ride on photo shoots, and just like you're saying, I mean, it's so convenient. I could flip it up, we could shoot, and never have to, you know.
Yeah. So
worry about it. Yeah, they're pretty nice.
They are dual sport helmets, which I see Adam wearing a lot of the time. You know.
I love those adventure touring dual sport helmets. Those things are what a compromise. I mean, you've got the full face comfort and protection of a full face helmet, and you have that cool looking peak, so it still looks off roady and has some level of function in terms of, you know, keeping the sun off your face and dirt and debris. Yeah, I mean, I love adventure touring helmets. I just wish more companies made good ones. I mean, Arai just updated their XD5, which was a much needed improvement. I think that previous XD4 helmet was 16, 17 years old.
It was getting long in the tooth, yeah. And it was, unfortunately, the XD4 was never one of my favorites, mainly only because of the visor, you know, the clear lens. There was some distortion there and actually would get me motion sick at times.
Yeah, I agree. I would have that same issue where you get a little discombobulated, you know.
But the new XD5, awesome, really good. You know, I think it's right on the same level as with the Hornet. You know, those two are probably the tops of the spectrum. So, and then of course you got off-road helmets, motocross helmets, where, you know, you have a peaked visor, you've got a longer, more pushed out chin bar, you know, and then of course you have open face helmets. So 3/4 helmets, half helmets, and not all of those are created equal, right? And we'll get into the helmet certifications, but if it's not certified, it's not safe. Like a half helmet that you got at a swap meet that has a DOT sticker on it that doesn't look legit isn't legit. So a half helmet that actually works sticks out from your head quite a long ways. It's not form fitting to your head. So Just warnings on that. So helmet construction, real quick. Helmets. You've got an outer layer that is different shell materials. You've got fiberglass. You've got Kevlar. You've got carbon fiber. You've got aramid fibers. You've got mixes of all those things. You've got polycarbonate helmets. And, we as helmet snobs prefer not to wear polycarbonate, but it doesn't mean they don't do their job. If they have the proper ratings, then they're still doing their job. So, and then inside of that shell, you've got a dampening material. You've got some sort of crushable, compactable material that slows the time, and we'll say it lengthens the impact time to lessen the amount of G-forces applied to your head and your brain. So the longer that force can be spread out, the more time, the better it's going to be for your head. So, you've got manufacturers that use some sort of EPS, which is, like styrofoam balls that are hooked together in different densities, and they crush at different rates. You've got some other kind of stuff like the
MIPS now too. We got to talk about that. MIPS,
Yeah. There's MIPS, which is it helps a lot with rotational forces. It allows a little bit of sliding, and it slows down that grab on your helmet going left or right or up or down or any sort of rotation. And then you got the I don't know how to say it, co-cryos or something like that. Choroid. And those are interesting because they're like easiest way to describe it is they're like straws that are stacked together, and the openings are faced towards where the impact goes, and those crush kind of like cardboard almost. And then you've got and those are in some newer helmets, like I think a Climb helmet has it and a few others. So, and then of course you got 6D that have their own completely different proprietary system with rubber dampers that
the omnidirectional
stuff,
absorbers,
Yep. And then Fly has a motocross helmet also that has kind of a take on the 6D model with some omnidirectional dampeners as well. So lots of helmet construction, lots of different ways of skinning a cat, but there's one thing that you should have on a helmet, and that is a certification, right? So it gets really, really complicated, but there's like at least 3 ratings you should look for. A DOT, which every motorcycle that's used on the street has to have a DOT rating in the US. You should look at SNELL, which has some different testing criteria that is fairly robust. And then you have ECE, which is the European Commission, Economic Commission for Europe rating, which is like basically the DOT for Europe in a way. So, I have some notes. I don't want to bore you with all of them, but DOT, they use some weights. They drop it on a helmet, and there's a threshold for how many G's can be transmitted through that helmet to the head form, which would be your head. And that's 400 G's, which is 400 times the force of gravity. That is still a lot of force. And they use a 6-pound spike also from 6 feet, drop it on the helmet, and it can't penetrate the helmet. And DOT is on the honor system. So helmet manufacturers have to test it themselves. They have to use the standards, and then they put the DOT sticker on their helmet. If they're tested and they don't, then they get fines, they get penalties, they get recalls, lawsuits, all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of interesting that like the government body's just like, yeah, you test it, you tell if it's fine or not.
Yeah, but in some way that seems weird, but in another way that leaves all of the liability on you. You can't, if you're a helmet manufacturer, in a sense, that makes you even more likely to make sure that those things that you are easily meeting those requirements.
Yeah, that's very true because one, fines and all that kind of stuff, but then also lawsuits, right?
Yeah.
So it's in their best interest, but they're still, like I said, the pudding bowls at the swap meet with a DOT sticker on it, good luck finding the company to sue or give fines to, I guess, So Snell is the Snell Memorial Foundation for Pete Snell. He was a race car driver that died in 1956. And so they created this Memorial Foundation for helmet testing. And they're a little bit more stringent than DOT. Instead of just using these forms that they drop on the helmet, they've added some more shapes. One is like a curb shape instead of a round hemisphere and a flat block. So they go to like a curb shape, and then they have one that has like edges, like sharp edges, which really transfers a lot of force. And their threshold is 275 G's. instead of 400 Gs. So a bit more stringent on how much force can be applied to your head. And then they have standards about all the parts that must break away from the helmet. If they extend more than like 7 millimeters, I think, like those things have to be able to easily break off your helmet. So we're talking about like cooling fins and shapes. They have to come off.
Arrow shapes.
Yeah, arrow shapes have to be able to fly off pretty easily. And then you've got ECE, which is basically more testing, and it has some thresholds that are very similar, 275 Gs at a high speed impact, and then a low speed impact, 180 Gs. So they do a high and a low, and they test in random locations. So a manufacturer can't game the system of like, well, we know they test on the forehead and we know they test on the ear hole, so we're going to build those way up big and be thin in other places. So the testers get to pick from 18 different locations and do it themselves. And they have a setup for like glancing blows also for rotation test. And then you've got FIM, which is for racing. Like if you're racing in an FIM competition, it has to have the FIM standard as well. So that's
would that be the highest standard, FIM?
I wouldn't say it's the highest standard, but it's just another standard that, they find some things that they feel are important to have in a helmet, and they've added those to all the other standards. So
they're required if you want to compete in that race.
Exactly.
Body.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot not wear a non-FIM rated helmet in any FIM race. That
sanctioned event.
From MotoGP to enduro races to motocross, whatever, it has to be there. So, and that kind of goes, to like, that's the standard. That's the long and short of it. I know it's kind of boring and maybe we lost some people there, but it's important. This is your head. This is your brain. This is the computer that keeps you running for your entire life. And, I know all of us have encountered serious concussions in our lives and how bad it messes you up,
It's the one cool thing is the progression. I mean, for decades and decades and decades, motorcycle helmets were essentially built relatively the same. But now, with 6D's proprietary damper system, the Swedish MIPS system, which you can buy and integrate into your helmet, and then, the Japanese helmet manufacturers with their tried and true multi-density EPS, there's a lot of different options out there, and it's kind of funny because it's a little bit of a black magic science, like ours is better. Well, no, ours is better. It's really hard to, objectively analyze which one's better. But the moral of the story is these companies are trying to improve the safety and well-being of motorcycle riders.
Yeah, and that's an interesting.
And doing so,
Yeah, that's the interesting conversation is we test things here, right? But none of us want to test a helmet in terms of the ultimate safety of a helmet.
No.
Because if we're testing it, that means we're falling and we're having a very bad day. So I had a meeting with Arai a few weeks ago, and they were talking about like, how can we get our message across about how we do things? And I was like, short of like us crashing, like all we can really comment on is how they feel, build quality, and tell the story of how you build a helmet and why you have that shape still, that R75 shape, or the round shape that Arai has always had, and why you use it. And they were like, like how do we? And then they showed me a video of flat tracker Johnny Lewis crashing at a race, and he like low-sided, and he was on the other side of the bike, and he raised his head up to get up and took a fork leg right to his forehead.
Wow.
I mean, at race speed, just plowed, and he didn't even get knocked out. And they were like, that's why we do R75. Like they brought the helmet to show me, and it was hit almost center line, but the mark went sideways because of the shapes. I mean, they all have their reasons for doing what they do. And in the ultimate goal of every helmet manufacturer, I should say, every major helmet manufacturer is to keep you safe rather than make a profit. They like profits and they like to do things, but they also want to keep their customers safe because it's quite a business to be in, right? You are, absolutely protecting people's lives, and there's such a high standard that they have to care. They absolutely have to care. They don't put profits over people.
Speaking of that Johnny Lewis story, I know at a lot of Arai America events they do here in the United States, they love showing this video from some Japanese World Superbike or all Japanese Superbike race series in Japan, and it's a Kawasaki rider. I can't remember his name, but he's riding at some famous Japanese racetrack, and he crashes at 180 miles per hour and lands on his head and slides on his head for meters and meters and meters, and they're always really quick to point out the glancing, like make our helmets so they slide smoothly and don't catch it on anything. And that video is crazy because they show that helmet and it's just like it's ground down, it's smashed in half. You would think that the person wearing it died, but they didn't. They were totally fine.
I remember. Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was going to say it's crazy when you are watching racing, especially road racing. All the gear, head to toe, how some of these crashes are absolutely insane. And if you were just, wearing what guys wear around town, you would not get up.
No, you would not.
And these guys, they go down at nearly 200 miles an hour, and their first concern is to find the bike and get started again. Like they're not. There's no thought of, am I hurt? Because they know they're fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think Jorge Martin didn't get up very quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
this weekend.
Generally speaking, guys don't go high side like that as often as they used to.
No, that one was gnarly. Jorge Martin high sided himself, and his first point of impact was his face.
Yeah,
that was pretty gnarly one. But and I think that's an important thing. Like I think it is the requisite piece of gear above all else. Like when you buy a motorcycle, if you can only afford one thing to protect yourself, it has to be a helmet.
A good helmet.
Yeah, and a good helmet, one with all those ratings.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, spend top dollar to get those ratings. Like it's nice. Like when you go to the top dollar, the materials are better, they get lighter, they get more comfortable. But if you have to, if you've only got a couple $100 or whatever, look for the one that has those ratings and buy that helmet. You know what I mean? Don't skimp. Don't skimp on a helmet.
Yeah. The good thing about a lot of those helmets too is, every couple of years they come out with new colorways and new graphics. So what that means is the previous colorway and graphics are now on sale. So you can generally get a really high quality helmet, with all these certifications and features for a lesser price if you pay attention to the shopping schedule.
Yep, exactly. So we can't say it enough. I think we've harped on it long enough. Get a helmet. That's number one. All the gear all the time starts with a helmet, ends with a helmet. Do not leave a helmet out of the equation. So let's get on to like actual gear, like the stuff on your body. So there's ratings for that stuff as well. There's CE ratings. So there's a scale that goes from C to AAA, and it's all about like the abrasion resistance and also impact absorption. So there's C and B. Those are more about not, C is for holding pads in place. So it's like an undersuit. B has abrasion resistant, but it doesn't have any impact absorption. A is like the minimum absorption of impact and abrasion resistance. AAA is better, and obviously AAA is the ultimate, and that's usually reserved for road racing suits with airbags and all these things. So let's talk about jackets. Like, what do you guys prefer for jackets?
Well, what are we talking? I mean,
like leather, textile.
This is one of my favorite jackets right here, the Dave Aldana Bones jacket, which is yours. I brought it in here because I love the look of that jacket. But are we talking about like for street riding or
Let's talk about like street riding, because let's keep it to street riding because everyone street rides, right? I mean, our audience mainly is a street riding audience. So let's talk about that. Let's worry about track stuff and all that later. But let's talk about like, what do you prefer for the street? Like, what do you like to wear?
I generally prefer leather. Like I have a lightweight summer jacket, a Roland Sands, that I wear in the summertime. And then in the wintertime, I have a Speedy jacket that's like bomber with a sheepskin collar. And one of the reasons I like these jackets because they're so comfortable, but also they're not heavily branded or racy looking. Like I can go to dinner on the motorcycle and walk in and I just look like I'm wearing a nice jacket. And that's what I like. I don't want it to be generally, that I just walked off the track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we live in a good time where a lot of apparel manufacturers make these awesome, textile and leather motorcycle jackets that have the, removable armor, have the C certification, have a lot of features and benefits we want as motorcycle riders. Yet you can still not look like a motorcycle rider when you're at the store. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, even those jackets have the armor is a little stealthy. Like it has armor in it, but you don't particularly see the armor.
No, you just look you look a little cut, you look a little ripped.
Yeah,
you know what
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, I would say I go towards leather more than not, but I also really see the value in textile because usually it's less expensive, which means that if you're shopping on a budget for gear, you'll probably end up with a textile jacket to start with, and that's totally fine. And there's all kinds of styles and all kinds of shapes. And like you said, you could get one that you could wear to dinner and no one would even know it's a motorcycle jacket. And I think that's really cool. But then if you want something that looks racy to go with your sport bike, there's plenty of that stuff too. But I do prefer leather as well. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of snobbish as well as I just like the feel of leather. And like when you get a really good leather jacket that smells good, that feels good, you're just like, oh man, this thing is a piece of art that I'm wearing that protects me, but also is super cool. Right?
Yeah, and those leather jackets, it seems like the good quality ones, as long as you keep them out of the rain, they just get better and better with age. They just break in more slowly.
They get nice. Yeah, like that Aldana jacket behind you. That thing's timeless, and I'll probably have that for my entire life. I'll never get rid of that jacket.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because it's just cool. It's a Vanson, jacket, and it's super rad. It looks great. It's got a cool style to it. It's classic and it's got really nice leather. Like it's not cheap leather, So,
it's funny. The AMA, I was reading about the AMA tried to ban that jacket. They thought when he started wearing it, they thought it was too outlaw. And and Flat Track, they were trying to get away from that connection, and so they were going to ban his jacket.
That's funny. So, just like helmets, I think you need to look for CE ratings when you're shopping for gear, and at least get a or a AA jacket with armor. So and that, I guess that we should actually jump to we'll talk about armor a little later, and we'll talk about airbags as well, which all are new pieces to jackets that do have some really, really good things. So okay, what about gloves? What's your jam on gloves?
Just again, it depends what we're riding, but I mean, there's awesome options in leather, awesome options in textile, long cuff, short cuff. Generally, personally, I like riding in short cuff leather gloves on the street. Short cuff leather gloves. One thing that makes a huge difference is the type of glove. So in the winter time, which is now, it's nice to ride with a real thick insulated glove that has some type of Gore-Tex or Gore-Tex-like material that keeps the wind off your mitts, and then in the summer, conversely, it's always nice to ride in a nice perforated glove just to keep your hands cool, keep them from getting sweaty. A lot of these gloves now, they even have that feature where you can manipulate your Android or iOS powered smartphone with your index finger, that special material.
Yep.
So, again, maybe not quite as much evolution in glove technology as helmets, but still evolution.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm with you, Adam. I'm the short cuff. I have a couple of pair of Dainese gloves that I've had for a long time. Thankfully, I've not needed them, so to speak. I haven't gone down, and they are just perfectly shaped to my hands. They just, every time I put them on, they just feel so good. And they're uninsulated, and they are my first choice just about every time.
I go back and forth between leather and textile. I think they all have their own uses, and that's what you have to decide is like how you're going to be manipulating the controls, if you're going to be adventure riding, if you're going to be on the street, whatever. And same with short cuff, long cuff. I think if you're going to if you're wearing like a sporty, sport bike type of setup, go with the long cuff. The long cuff gives you a little bit more protection on your wrist bones and things like that. If you do go down, the gauntlet is there for a reason. But short gloves are way more comfortable and way easier to move around on a daily basis, and they're still offer tons of abrasion resistance. So I really like that. But one thing I do look for in a glove is stitching on the inside of the glove instead of on the outside on your fingers. So, construction. So if you have the stitching on the outside, what happens when you go sliding and you put your hand down? Those stitches immediately get ground away and the gloves can come apart. So, high quality gloves, they have internal stitching. They may have some external stitching as well, but you want to make sure that the final layer that holds everything together is on the inside of the glove so that it doesn't get ground away.
Yeah, sometimes gloves are so expensive. I mean, because they can be, like you're talking about, the stitching, crazy intricate. I did a walkthrough at Speedy, the factory in Italy one time, and we walked by and there were these ladies with these small little hands sewing custom race gloves for their guys. And I think they told us that each pair of gloves has 160 individual pieces of fabric.
That's wild.
And then you think about how expensive gloves are, and then you hear there's 160 pieces that somebody has to, sew together. Then you realize that's why they're so expensive.
Yep.
That there's a lot that goes into them, and that's what makes them comfortable. And then that is also why they stay together when they hit the ground.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good pair of gloves. I mean, like you said, Jeff, like a good pair of leather gloves, they could last as long as you don't get them wet or super sweaty. They will last for a long, long, long time and only get better with age.
Yep. Only get better with age. More comfortable. They break into your hand and they become custom fit. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So what about like pants? Because we didn't really talk about pants, but I think there's just some important points about pants. You can get leather pants, you can get jeans, you get textile, whatever. As long as they're abrasion resistant and they got some pads in them, especially for your knees, that's the important part. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I forget who was sort of the first to make the abrasion resistant, like blue jeans. Because before, like, riding pants were not very attractive. They didn't look good, and you look like you go into a restaurant or something, even if it's just for lunch, you look like an astronaut or a spaceman or something. And all that stuff. And so I love that now you can have good looking jeans that are just as protective as the stuff that didn't look so good.
Yep, I agree. I have a lot of riding jeans. I really enjoy, the fit and finish of them now. Like you said, they don't look silly at all, and they're comfortable. They breathe pretty decently, depending on how much Kevlar they have in them, and they got like built-in, armor. So I really enjoy those, wearing those more than anything else. There's no real excuse.
The sheer amount of different cuts. I mean, just like up until a few years ago, you didn't have the same cuts as you had in the fashion industry. And now a lot of the apparel and safety manufacturers are making these fashion type cuts, relaxed fit, loose fit, slim fit. So depending on your style, there's a category of jean that's going to fit your body to what you want. It's really cool.
It's really cool. Yeah, I totally into it. So not a lot of discussion on pants, but they're also an important piece. Don't forget them. And then so boots. What do you guys look for in a motorcycle boot? What's the important bits?
Me personally, I do like stuff that is waterproof. I look for waterproofing. I mean, I want over the ankle and I want waterproofing. Even
in the summer?
Even in the summer. I'm not someone, my feet don't get hot. So I don't really worry about it. I just they do get cold though, if they get wet. So I don't care. I just want them to be waterproof.
Okay. Yeah, I look for above the ankle. I mean, that is, you have these two bones in your ankle that stick out. And if you go down, those things are perfect grinding points. And you don't want that to happen, and impact wise, like they just stick out. Like those things are just asking to get wrecked. So you need over the ankle. I also look for something that has a heel cup, because if you do take a tumbling fall, your legs are levers, right? And so the force at the end of your leg is much higher than at your, at the top of your leg, and your foot goes flinging and your heel comes down, smashing into the ground, and there's nothing there. Like, you're going to regret not having a heel cup.
Yeah. Yeah, I've experienced that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, that's super important. And I don't care if they're motorcycle shoes or motorcycle boots. It's just above the ankle, heel cup, and abrasion resistance. That's what's important. So, what about you, Heath? You have all kinds of. I remember you used to have these. I think they were Oscars. They were Alpine Stars, and they were like, you looked like you had bananas on your feet. Remember those things?
The yellow shoes. Yes, the yellow shoes. Yeah, that was Alpine Stars Nero, the Nero Nero line that they came out, I think, in like the early 2010s. That kind of fashionista, Italy kind of stuff. And yeah, those things were loud and obnoxious. But gosh, I mean, when it comes to boots and footwear, there's not a lot of companies that do it like Alpine Stars. I'll tell you that much.
Those things are hilarious. He just looked like he had just banana skins on his feet all the time. It was wild.
Yeah.
So.
That reminds me, didn't Puma make some boots like that at one point? They made some, you have a regular shoe company and they started making motorcycle boots. And it was the same thing. They were not attractive.
No, yeah. And they also had road race boots though for a very, very short time that were cool.
They did. Yeah. They did. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember Nike had the off-road motocross boots for a short stint.
Those look pretty good though, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I think so too.
They made off-road motocross boots for GM Stewart, for that 1 year only, and then no one could ever get them.
Ryan Dungey too.
Yeah, Dungey.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So, okay, well, let's talk about armor. We're going to get back into just a quick bit of, I guess, science or specs. There's CE1 and CE2 armor, and there's like the way that they rate it is how much force is transferred to your body through the armor. So CE1 has 35 kilonewtons of maximum allowed force transfer. And Adam looked it up, and that's like 7,900 pounds of force. So that's like a car resting on your on your pad, But what they do is that time is slowed down. So, like it's a crazy number, but the body is fragile, but it's also like, it's amazing. 7,900 pounds of force, and you may not get injured. Like, we're built tough, you know what I mean? Even though at the same time, life is very fragile. So
yeah, see, now I have that number.
A lot of give.
Now I have that number in my head. I'll be thinking about that on the motorcycle. Thanks for that, Dawes.
Yeah, well, then get the CE2 because it's 20 kilonewtons, which is 4,500 pounds. That's only probably like an Accord instead of a F350. So anyways, there's 2 ratings. Look for them. And, armor, you could get back protectors, chest protectors, elbow, shoulder, knees, hips. They're all actually pretty amazing how thin they are and how much they can help you. And a lot of them are made of non-Newtonian materials at this point, which is, they're soft, they're pliable, but when they get hit, they stiffen up. It's like what's that stuff called? Oobleck, where you take the cornstarch and water and you slowly touch it, and it's like a fluid, and then if you could walk across it if you want, if you stomp your feet.
Yeah. I remember the first I remember learning of that was that company 30D D3O.
3O, the orange stuff.
The orange stuff, yeah.
Yeah, they did like at their first press thing, and I think they do it at every press thing. They brought out a piece and they laid a D3O over a person's hand, and then they smacked the thing with a hammer, and you're like, oh my god, and it didn't hurt at all.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Smashed by a hammer, and there's no force going to your hand, so it's pretty impressive.
It's super impressive.
D3O kind of led the way too in this new generation of pliable, removable armor, where a lot of these apparel manufacturers are making that really pliable armor that form fits to your elbows and your shoulders. And I mean, 15 years ago, the armor was not like that.
No, it was just like a foam, and it was very uncomfortable, and it
was like shipping foam.
Yeah, it just didn't feel good on your body at times. Like I have very jacked up knees that are sensitive to force, and there would be times when I'd have knee pads in, 15 years ago, and I was just like, oh my god, these things hurt my knees so bad. And I haven't had that problem in a long time. So big improvement there. So let's talk about airbags. Heath, I'm going to let you do this one. You've experienced lots of different airbags. Tell us about them. Like, what do you think? What are they for? All that.
Well, it's pretty crazy. I mean, companies like Alpine Stars and Dainese, they've been leading the charge in these wearable airbag vests and suits for quite some time. And, especially Alpine Stars, it's amazing. Like that, their Tech Air line has just grown. I mean, they have Tech Air 3, which is a vest that you wear over your jacket, or you can wear it under, but you can just wear it over as well. And they have Tech Air 5, and they have Tech Air 7X, which is their new airbag vest that you can wear underneath your leather suit. Now they have Tech Air Off-Road for all of us riders out there that like to ride off-road but want to have some type of wearable airbag system. And it's crazy just how companies have been able to develop this technology to help reduce the chance of injuring yourself in an accident. I've never personally had an airbag go off, but I know that it's a nice piece of technology to be wearing, and it's very reassuring when you're riding your motorcycle because you don't know what can happen.
Yeah, and the interesting part is with these new airbags, it's like originally there was airbags by like Helite and these companies that were like they had a tether attached to the motorcycle, right? And so if you flew off the bike, they would pop. And they would go off, and it would be in milliseconds. And, it was more of like, it looked like a life vest almost, right? But it protected your spine, it protected your chest, protected your shoulders. And now, Alpine Stars and Dainese, they've been giving these things to racers for almost 15 years. And with every crash, they get the data and they go, okay. And so they've built this algorithms that the suit has all these sensors in the chest and the arms and stuff. And when you go flying, or it senses, oh, that's a crash. The thing is already inflated before you've left the motorcycle.
That's crazy.
That's really the secret sauce, I think, with these companies is their proprietary programming, where these systems are enabled to, predict when you're going to have an accident. I mean, look at Marc Marquez a few years ago when he was riding the Repsol Honda MotoGP bike. I forget the stat, but I think in one season, like he crashed, went through like 40 or 50 suits in like one season.
Yeah.
And he didn't even get hurt.
No.
Barely,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I think they're awesome pieces of kit. They are not yet cheap, but some of them are more affordable than others, like a Tech Air 3. Something like that is somewhat affordable. But I mean, they are definitely proven to work. I mean, look at Marc Marquez.
Yeah. I've been impressed by the subtleties of the algorithms, like what works maybe off-road, like for the rally guys and stuff like that. You couldn't have that same algorithm on a MotoGP guy because they're just not moving around as much. So those are really subtle movements that it's able to predict. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting because the Tech Air Off-Road has 3 settings. It has an enduro setting, an off-road setting, and like a street or adventure setting. So it depending on the type of riding you're doing, it's detecting, it changes its algorithm. And so it's like if you're on the street mode or the one where you're not doing something extreme, if there's a big movement, it goes off. But in the off-road setting, sometimes you have big movements when you're riding off-road and it knows, nope, that's not a crash.
Yeah, or just hit a jump.
Yeah, it just hit a jump. And it's like, no, that's not a crash. It's all good. He's fine.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really impressive. I have a Tech Air Off-Road. I wear it. I'm going to be wearing it more often, and I think for the street, there are great options as well. Ones that are built into jackets, ones that you can change up your jackets and ride different styles, but still have airbag protection underneath. It's pretty awesome.
There's that one gentleman, I can't think of his name right now, but he races for the HRC team in the Dakar rally events. He's from Utah. I just can't think of his name right now.
Skylar?
And Skylar, yeah, Skylar House. he is the biggest advocate of that Tech Air off-road. Like, he is always, whenever I see him, he's like, I will not ride my motorcycle without that piece of gear. It's helped me too many times. I've seen it help other people. I literally will not ride without it. It's so just neat to see someone speak about a product like that with such vigor. It's, I haven't really
like he wears them when he's out training. He wears it not just when he's racing, but when he's out training. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny how we adapt to pieces of safety. Like, it's like in your car, like you feel naked if you don't put the seatbelt on, right? And I grew up, we didn't wear seatbelts. And then at some point, now I wouldn't even drive if I didn't have my seatbelt on. And it's the same with my knee braces. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm going to ride off road or something, there have been times once where I got to the track, realized I brought everything except my knee braces, and I just loaded it up and went back home. I'm like, it's not worth it.
Yep. I will not ride without knee braces. Yeah. I have junk knees. And if you don't have junk knees, you should still get knee braces because they keep you from getting junk knees.
Yeah.
So I think those are important gear too. And I think there's other things that we're not touching on all the way, but chest protectors, off-road and on-road, like a chest plate inside of a jacket. A lot of people wear them in road race gear. Like, that's one thing we didn't talk about too, is leather suits for track riding. If you want to, you can wear those on the street. I mean, you look like a spaceman, but that is the ultimate, and I have crashed on the street with road race leathers and have walked away completely unscathed. So if you want the ultimate, just go get road race leathers and wear them everywhere, but you don't need to. I mean, there's plenty of gear that almost reaches that same level, right? So what else? Like, we didn't really touch on like neck protectors, like Liat and a few companies have neck protectors. They kind of like gained really big in popularity and now they're not as popular. But I went to Liat in probably 2012 to their South African testing facility, and the science is there. They work, and people are like, oh, they break collarbones or whatever, but they don't. A collarbone break always comes because you hit your shoulder from the side, not from the top. It's hard to break a collarbone this way because they are flexible. But if you hit it this way, they bow and then they break. So neck protectors don't break collarbones, and I think they're a good piece of equipment, especially for off-road riding.
Yeah, we all have a friend who was wearing a neck brace when he crashed, and he still walks to this day, even though the doctors told him he probably shouldn't.
Yep.
No,
exactly.
So it's a good example of a new style of equipment doing its job.
Absolutely. So that's it. That's our take on gear. We are proponents of gear. We know it's a cost, right? Like, it's not cheap. It can be cheaper or more expensive, but there's a reason why. It's because it saves your life. It saves you from being hurt. It saves you from not being on your motorcycle for a long time if you crash. There's so many reasons to ride gear, right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but just that fact alone, you can just get up and still ride the next day.
Exactly.
And it just makes your experience just more comfortable. It just makes it, why not have more fun on your motorcycle than have less fun?
Exactly. If I have any friend that gets into motorcycling, I make sure that they have gear before they go. And all of you watching this, you're our friends too. We want you to be safe and we want you to wear gear. So that's it for this episode of the Motorcyclist Podcast. Again, we want to hear what you think. Tell us about your gear. What's your favorite piece of gear? Do you have a brand that you prefer over the others? Put it down in the comments below. Let us know about pricing and what features you look for as well. We really want to hear about what you think about gear. So that's it. Thanks for watching. We appreciate your support. Hit the like button, subscribe, and tell your friends about our podcast too. We appreciate the support, and we will see you next time.